Welcome to Afterlife Café TV, connecting hearts, healing souls, and bridging worlds. I'm your host, Helen Peacock, and this is your sacred grounds, a warm, welcoming space where you're invited to take a seat, exhale, and just be. Each week, we will gather cafe style for heartfelt conversations, some mediumship, and maybe some intuitive insights and soulful storytelling that explore the afterlife, some healing, grieving, and the unbreakable bond between us and those in spirit. Here, laughter and tears are both welcome. Love transcends time, and spirit meets us in the most human of ways. So if you're seeking comfort, connection, or a deeper trust in your own inner knowing, you're in the right place. So pour yourself something warm and let's begin. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the show. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're returning, welcome back. And so this is a very, very special show for me, because I'm really excited about my guest, and he is like very close and dear to my heart. And I'd like to welcome and introduce to you my brother, David Donnelly. Welcome, bro.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Yes. And so we're going to discuss today, which my brother is basically, I like to call him the guru. I don't think he likes that too much, but he is the guru when it comes to breath work. And I love his philosophy. I love the experience that he has received from all of this. He is an amazing teacher as well. So David, what I'd love for you to do, if you don't mind, is sharing with my audience. Let's do a backstory. Is what inspired you to tap into all of this regarding the anatomy, the body, the breath work, and how deep does it go? So remember, if we can get the Coles Notes version, because I know you can go, and I will be honest with you, I didn't tell you this because I wanted to say it for the show. I actually, because I just left from up north from the cottage and drove down this morning. Yes, I got up at 6 a.m., which is not easy for me. And I revisited the podcast that you have done on the science and ecology of the breath work. And let me tell you, like it was just amazing. And I got, believe it or not, a little bit emotional at the end, because I'm like, wait a minute, you can't finish. You're like my comfort zone. Like, where did it go? I wanted to hear more. And then I went back and I revisited your YouTube channel, and I was like, oh, there's a lot more here than I anticipated. So I'm really excited for you to share that. So if you can just do, again, the backstory of what started this all for you, bro?
Well, if you recall, born with asthma. So
Mm-hmm.
that was a definite sign of needing to understand the relationship that I have with my breath. Moreover, growing up kind of not being healthy, right? Not a healthy
Yep.
child at all. And so getting into martial arts was something that was always big in my life when I was young. And when I was in my very early 20s, our brother James and I were training under a gentleman named Tony, and we were studying Val Tudo. And I'd done Kung Fu and other little bits of mixed martial arts leading up to that. Uh, I wasn't all that great, but a lot of it was psychological for me. And so what would happen was Tony started noticing that when big guys, everybody I thought was big, big guys got on top of me, I would panic. And that would be it. I'd be done. And so he finally pulled me aside. He understood I have asthma, and so he addressed that. But he was like, "Why? Why are you panicking?" And I said, "Well, I can't get my breath." And so he started teaching me pranayama.
Mm-hmm.
Brazilian grappling, there's um, a lot of yoga that's actually been incorporated, more so the breathing than anything else. The pranayama is very important in the traditional roots of those types of arts. It's a major part of Kung Fu and all that as well, but when I was young, I just didn't care. I didn't focus on that. I wanted high kicks, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so I actually started to step away from the martial arts once I started learning the pranayama. The injuries that I was starting to sustain in the martial arts was just starting to mess with me. So instead, I switched over to yoga and I started getting very heavily into yoga. I started getting very heavily into the breathing. And suddenly I noticed that my mental, acuity was just boom. It was there. Suddenly I could access emotions that I was locked out from. Suddenly I can access a certain way of perception that I was locked out from. And so it started to change me. It started to change how I perceive things. It started to change how I feel. It started even to change how I eat. Like it was all gradual.
Hmm.
And then I found another teacher and started learning Qigong. And the Qigong really spoke to me and it really started to draw me also back into the martial side. But I was able to go back into the martial side with a very different approach to be very safe and to be very spiritual and healing in my approach. And so studying with him was a huge eye opener into the actual accessibility that I have with my internal world. And eventually I left him and ended up moving to China, where I got even deeper roots of it. And so it's been a long process. I've been doing this now 30 odd years and really working with the relationship that I have with the
Hmm.
breath. I think that's the way I'd like to put it the most is that what we miss is that our breath is not only the bridge to our environment and how we access the ecosystem of our body, but it's also our relationship to the world. It's our
Yep.
relationship with
Totally
our
agree.
it's our relationship with our chi, our life force,
Hmm.
and it sits within the feedback loops of all the necessary systems of the body. And so it allows us to access areas of the body that we wouldn't normally access. It awakens our body awareness. And so I jump systems. I'm not a system person in that sense that I just stick to one system. And even studying ecology, deep ecology, these were huge influences for me.
Hmm.
Be into metaphysics. So it's not just a linear path. I got heavy into metaphysics. I got heavy into ecology. I got heavy into biology. I got heavy into physics and chemistry. And what I started to realize, because people were even starting to question me in the fact that I was all over the place in their opinion. But to me, I was learning the story of us, the story of reality, the story of myself, because physics, that's one story of me. The chemistry is another story of me. The biology, that's another story of me. This planet is another story of me. My mind, like I can keep going, but they're all stories that overlap and interact with each other to produce the larger story, the bigger picture.
Hmm. One thing that you mentioned in the podcast that I listened to this morning on the way home was I loved how you explained how when we're first born with the baby, right? Can you dive into a little bit that just because where it stems from?
The way we were born breathing
Hmm.
is very important to pay attention to because that's how we're supposed to be breathing for the most part. I can't say that there is a specific way to breathe all the time because there's not. The breath is dynamic and we have to be able to shift with that. So when we're born and you watch a baby, the baby is breathing with its core. It's
Hmm.
breathing really with its whole body, but it's breathing with its core. And the baby learns to really listen to the body.
Because
Everything
the body doesn't lie.
body doesn't lie. And that's what I wanted to get at too, was that when we listen to the awareness in the body with a clean perception, it tells us the truth. And so a
Hmm.
baby is only coming from truth.
Yep.
Any expression that the baby is going through at that stage is what's happening in its body or how the environment is again influencing the body. The mind, the ego, these things haven't been formed yet. And so it's all just this natural truth coming out. Unfortunately, it's very narcissistic. Me, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we start to form that. That's self-awareness and self-consciousness. And then we have to learn to pull away from that at some point. But it's very important to understand that we were born already knowing how to breathe. It's those other influences that pull us from that truth.
The laziness is where I believe it stems from, don't you think? When because we're supposed to be breathing from the diaphragm, yes?
I don't know if I would say laziness.
Laziness. But
I
as we
think
get older, it's the laziness
it
of the
could be.
breathing.
I would try to avoid the word lazy
Okay.
in the sense that lack of motivation can also in itself
Mm-hmm.
be a form of mental decline or a mental illness, if you want to call it that. Getting motivation for some people is very, very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And they might not be lazy in their life. They can be distracted.
True.
Their
Yes.
priorities may have a whole different hierarchy, but they might not be lazy. I think what happens here is that we get shifted from the actual body's awareness
Mm-hmm.
and our perception, our perspective begins to change through childhood. And so that's dangerous because we start getting pulled out of the awareness of the body. We start projecting into the body our own sense of truth, which in a lot of cases could be just paranoia. You know, they say, trust your gut.
Mm-hmm.
Always be the case. If you're an anxious person, you might not want to be always
True
trusting
that.
your gut.
Yes.
Your gut can start lying to you after a while if
Mm-hmm.
it's producing the wrong acids. You're, if you're an anxious person, you could start looking for issues in your environment when nothing could be going on just because of anxiety. And suddenly you're like, well, I got to follow my gut. I got to make sure that. So intuition, I would like to say that intuition is when we are definitely in tune with ourselves. Other than that, it becomes dirty awareness, which leads to paranoia. This is why in being intuitive is far more important than being scientifically accurate all the time. Because then you can miss things. Science is a controlled experiment. You
True.
find the outcome many times, what you're looking for. But intuition, true intuition, will guide you into the proper formats. The middle ground, that dirty awareness, that paranoia that we create, that's when the ego or the mind starts dictating what truth is. And that's dangerous.
Yeah. Good point. I like that part where you introduced the intuition part, following
Mhm.
that gut. I never realized it that it could be also the environment as well that could distract that. So thank you for bringing that up. I really, really appreciate that. Um, so I one thing that I admire about you, David, is looking back at your videos, how long ago you've been tapped into this. But now breathwork is becoming more of a norm. Like almost every yoga studio that you go to, there's facilitators. It's now, oh, we're going to do breathwork now. And I'm just like, my brother's been doing this for many, many years. But now it's becoming like part of our, what should I say? It's part of our health regimen. If you're into, connecting with your spirituality, tapping into breath work, doing sound work as well, all those sound baths and things like that. And so the question I wanted to ask you is when that, which one video that I'm talking about, the science and ecology
Mhm.
that you did, is there anything that would you have changed anything about that? Is there anything that you would add to that, considering that that was filmed 15 years ago? You may not remember everything because it was so long ago.
Yeah. Um, there are misconceptions I think that people look into. Unfortunately, I speak metaphorically. I'm a very
Which I
metaphor.
like, but I do. I
Yes,
like, especially the whole vacuum. I'm like, okay, if I've got listeners that have never had a Hoover, they wouldn't know what a vacuum is with a bag.
right.
I started laughing when you used that
Yeah.
analogy. I was like, okay.
I think it's important that we remove some of the confusion that might have come from metaphors, though. Like when I say that the breath is the conductor, I say that the
Hmm.
breath is the one controlling everything.
Yeah.
What I mean by that, I should have said influenced. I might have corrected that. I haven't listened to it in a long time either. But it always comes back to me once in a while that I might have said control. And so I want to make sure that it's important that we don't control the breath. The breath doesn't control us. There's a mediator here. The confusing part is that, first of all, it's not should I be breathing slow and relaxed all the time with my core, or should I be breathing quick and and then all these techniques that
Yes, there are
breathing
so many.
facilitators have now. There's nothing wrong with getting in tune with your breath, forming a relationship with your breath, experimenting to see what happens. I would say that it is important overall to have a relaxed core, a relaxed deep breath. In Qigong, we might call this the Buddhist breath,
Okay.
which is the passive breath. And then there's like the Taoist breath, which is the active breath. Um, I don't want to create confusion, but what I want to get into here is that the breath really is about demand. It is dependent on the metabolic burn. So if I'm active, then it's very important that I am actually starting to increase my breathing a little bit. I don't want my breath to be too deep and too slow during that process.
Hmm.
What happens is the more the body is active or in stress, the more oxygen it burns, the more CO2 it creates. Another confusion that a lot of people in the breath circle seem to think is that you need to be CO2 free and you need to be in high alkalinity. And this is very incorrect. We need to just slightly fluctuate between going, alkalinic and acidic. Because when I drop into the acidity, that's when my body can absorb oxygen the most.
Oh,
Yes. If my alkalinity is too high and my CO2 levels are too low, then I'm not absorbing enough oxygen. The hemoglobin isn't releasing it enough, or it's
okay.
not being absorbed into it enough. We have to understand that this is supply and demand. Think of resources in our world. Unfortunately, our resources in our world are screwed over because we're not matching demand with,
Hmm.
you know? And so this is the situation with the body. When I am relaxed, then my breathing needs to go a little deeper, no forced breathing though. Relax, more with the diaphragm, more with the core, not just the belly, but the core, breathing with the lower back, the
Hmm.
side, all of that. Let everything expand and contract. The rib cage still expands and contracts, but you're not using the lung like a muscle. You're not
Hmm.
pumping the breath with your lungs. Now, when you get more active, then you need to pick it up. You need to burn that. But your body isn't about getting rid of carbon dioxide. It's about regulating carbon dioxide.
Okay.
This
Yeah.
is the difference. We need carbon dioxide. Very important. Like we need nitrogen, helium. We are the atmosphere. I think I opened with that actually in the,
Yeah. And that's important because I loved how you mentioned in the video was, first thing in the morning with the trees, all of that and getting all of that outdoors. And I notice, I sleep better, everything when I'm up north, again, because of the environment of the trees and what and first thing in the morning as well.
yeah.
And then you mentioned about, the body being relaxed. But there was one thing that you mentioned as well that really intrigued me is about, when we're working out, everyone thinks you're strong because of the muscles that you're building. Can you
Yeah.
elaborate a little bit on that and maybe a little bit of mindfulness? I'm just
Yeah.
watching the time here.
Okay. First of all, I just wanted to add, and this plays into that, is that we have to understand that the perception can also change all of that. So here's the problem. When you're stress thinking all the time,
Hmm.
you are tricking your body because you're making your body think you're under threat and you're active. And so all of a sudden, the body shifts the breathing to that. So this could be like a panic breath,
Hmm.
right? Think of the short, right? That short breath, that I call that a panic breath. It's a natural breath, but when you're panicking, it should be
Yep.
reserved for that. When you're breathing up here all the time, you're in fight or flight. When
Hmm.
you bring it down here, it's a more relaxed state. You're not under threat.
Hmm.
The mind reads it as, being calm. So it's important that we learn to understand that we play in the middle ground. So the breath is, here's the thing, it's automatic and voluntary, which means the breath controls itself, the body controls it, but so do we. So this allows us to get into the areas and influence the areas that we think are not in our control. This is where the strength comes from.
Hmm.
In Taoism, we say willpower, intention, and breath. Those are the three jewels of Taoism. Those are the three jewels that when you can match those, then you have this new strength. And so let's take a fighter, maybe like Conor McGregor, considered a top elite fighter, but for how long in a fight? He can knock a guy out. But once, if a guy, another fighter, can actually out sustain him, like say, I can take the hits and I can keep going, well, then Connor's going to burn out. And now
Exactly. Yeah.
they don't have the
Hmm.
strength now. He's lost his cardio, he's lost his power. And so real strength comes from the breath first.
Hmm.
Not saying that I
Okay.
can just then be some funny person
Yeah.
as long as I breathe, I can powerhouse it. No, no, it's both, of course. But sustaining, this is the thing.
Sustaining. Yeah.
Everything's about resources. How can, again, supply and demand, perception
Okay.
over behavior, these types of things. So thinking and emotion and all of that plays into it. And so you can, like I said, you can trick yourself into stress, but you can also then trick yourself out of stress through the breath.
So creating the shift.
Yes, it's up to
Yeah.
you.
And I share that a lot with my clients. I just say, check in with yourself, be the observer and be mindful of your thoughts, especially if you're feeling the anxiety in your chest. And then when you are aware of that, first of all, I say, notice, is there something that you just read, something that you just heard? You know, what did you see that brought this? And then go to your breath.
Yeah.
Nice long inhales and nice long exhales, taking your time. And I didn't mention that part, but I will be, is making sure that the body is in that form of relaxation if you can,
Yeah.
depending on where you're at.
Yeah.
And
But
then,
can I just
but
say,
it's so subtle. But the
yeah,
shift is just, it's like changing the station.
but because it's so subtle, don't overbreathe.
Overbreathe. Yeah.
Don't become so fanatical about it that you're actually overbreathing and throwing the system into other forms of
So what
stress.
about the box breath?
The
The box breath, box breathing, inhaling for 4, holding for 4, exhaling for 4, and then pausing on 4, and then doing it 4 times.
I think
That's
that
the quick version. That's a very quick
it's a quick,
version.
there's so many versions.
There are.
Like one I like to actually do a 10, so say six, because the less breathing, the better, right?
Okay.
So the longer the breath, the less the breathing. So let's just say I want to shift my brain waves into an alpha state.
Yep.
Well, then I'm going to do 6 breaths per minute. It's a very simple math. It's 10 seconds of breath, 5 seconds inhale, 5 seconds exhale, and not doing the gaps, just
Okay.
continuing that flow, and that calms everything down.
Okay.
Now, if
I
you
just
want to learn how to observe yourself, to learn your system, because everyone's different. This is the thing. I can't just give a prescription of the breath.
Yep.
Everybody is different. Everyone's physiology is different. And so they may need to take some time, go to a breath facilitator, test out some of these different forms of breathing to see how their system reacts to it. Don't go, oh, I've done this now. I have to keep doing this, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, no, experiment so that you understand your body better. You need to know what your alkalinity is. You need to know what your acidity is. You need to know what your emotions do. How does your immune response work in lieu with this? Your endocrine system, like it
Hmm.
all of those. And so we have to be able to tie it up in a way that we, and this is where I come back full circle, need to form a relationship with our breath.
With our
Relationship
breath. Yeah.
doesn't just happen because you force something into something and they go, that's
Yeah.
my relationship. It's give and take. It's listening,
The flow, the flow.
yeah, and experimenting with it to understand it.
Hmm.
So in doing so, you learn how your endocrine system works, how your metabolism works, how your mind and emotions work,
Hmm.
with it, how your digestive system can change from that.
Yeah.
All
There's so many layers to this, and unfortunately we don't have the time, but this is where I'd like to hopefully invite you back
oh, for sure.
and pick up some of the because so just again listening to your podcast this morning, I was like, oh boy, he's got like an hour and a half here and the show's 30 minutes. I'm just gonna have to have you back.
Well, and it's
Is
better
there
that people
anything?
just listen to the podcast rather than me
Yeah,
saying
well,
it.
I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna add your link to the show notes as well. Um, do you have any thoughts? Because I know you're retired, so I know you're not
Well,
offering
I
any
have
services.
like 20 classes on YouTube, all
Yeah,
in that link, and it's under the Samadhi Center.
yeah.
And
I'll put the show notes at the bottom
yeah,
so people
and so
know
you
how
can kind
to.
of just try it out. And it
Yeah,
doesn't
and you,
even be what I'm teaching. There's so
yeah,
much out there now.
yeah, and David has some great demonstrations on there too that even
Yeah,
I'm going to go back and revisit it. Is
yeah.
there any quick little advice that you would give to my audience? You know, how can they use, what's a quick one? I know you said about the prescription part, but what's your takeaway quickly that you can share with
Well, you
my
said that I was a
audience?
breath guru. No, no, no. Be your own breath
I
guru.
know.
It is
Cancel
very
delete. I
important that
just,
you are your own breath guru, and that
yeah,
starts with forming the relationship with your
yeah.
breath and learning.
But
Because
I'm
no one can tell you what you need.
exactly,
Listen
exactly.
back to the baby state
Yeah.
and listen to the truth of your
Okay. Well, I can get away with it because you're my brother. So I'm allowed to say that,
body.
whom I love very much. So David, thank you so much. I know there's so much more we can do with this. I liked how the part that you mentioned, the qigong and the kung fu and all of that, where it all stems from, because you are that person. You are my go-to person when it does come to the body, especially the body. So thank you so much for being here, for showing up, sharing your wisdom, your experiences, all of that good stuff. And
Thank you.
so if you wanted to reach out to David, or not to my brother, but check out his YouTube, just go by David Donnelly. And there's also, I want to say Chicology, which is spelled with a Q, Quicolgy.
Yes.
And when you put that into the YouTube, that will pop up as well. So
Yeah.
not a lot of people would know that, David. So I just wanted to put that out there.
The YouTube channel is the Samadhi Center.
Okay. Can you spell that?
SAMHDI.
SAMHDI. Okay. Samadhi. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, bro.
No problem.
And for my listeners, thank you for being here. I hope that you received a little bit of wisdom on that. And, don't forget, take the time out, observe, and breathe. I want to thank you for tuning in to Afterlife Café TV, connecting hearts, healing souls, and bridging worlds. I'm Helen Peacock, and I am so grateful, yes, it makes my heart sing, that you chose to spend this time here with me. So, to continue the connection, I do invite you to tune in to the Transformation Talk Radio every Tuesday at 11 a.m. for new episodes. And you can also visit my website at helenpeacock.ca to find out more about my sessions, group readings, yes, even Zoom group readings, and perhaps some events I may be holding. And also, there will be a course on your psychic development, mediumship development, if you're interested in that. And just know that there are more ways to gather in our Sacred Grounds community, where you can also, again, find me at helenpeacock.ca. So, if this episode touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. It does help the space reach others who may need it too. So, until next time, Trust the signs, stay curious, and remember, love never ends. It's just different.